Welcome. We're all hopping on. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, just as I've been learning about all this and seeing everyone that's going to be on, this is so fun. This stuff is like just the coolest. So, Robert and I geeked out about it this week, which was super fun. But she comes up in like so many of my conversations, and it's just so fun to explore the opposite sex. And so we just finished the
You cannot have a conversation with Judith anymore without Allison Armstrong coming up
oh
either.
yeah, she's as obsessed as I am now. It's so awesome. It's so good. So probably the same with me, but especially when I'm teaching this stuff, it's just in my brain and it's like, oh my gosh, I hear stories about my friends and their husbands and I'm like, that's what Alison Armstrong says. Like there's just all these affirmations and like confirmations that this stuff is true. It works. We are different. We can have compassion for each other. We can have compassion for ourselves. And so it's really great. So, one thing about Allison that's really interesting is she didn't go and study all of the literature about men and women and everything that was on the market or in the literature when she started to study men. She literally just went to men and she started to do her own market research. And so I think that's kind of an interesting thing where she'll be like, yeah, I actually haven't read a lot of books about this. And that's pros or cons, but it's really her own findings from talking, interviewing, being with um, thousands of men over the last 30 years. Uh, so yeah, great question. And it would be interesting. I actually haven't studied men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but I have studied a lot of other relationship teachings and that kind of thing. And so what I find is they just confirm each other when it's true, right? And a lot of them, once they write a book, they've found things that work and that are true. And so it's really fun to kind of keep learning and keep seeing how it all fits together. I'm going to begin by just going through the basics of what to expect, what you're going to learn in this, and then we'll get into the clarity process. And I also want to tell you that I'm at the retreat center that I have about 20 women coming, and we're you can't see the pool down there or anything, but it's in this gorgeous place right at the mouth of Zion National Park. And I just got here and I'm so excited. So we're just getting ready for all the women to come, and it's going to be a really fun time. So that's happening this weekend for me. Okay, so how to start. We have the workbook, and I'm going to put the workbook into the chat so that everyone can have access to it. I love to print the workbooks. It's probably like the 10th workbook I've put together. But they're awesome to have. And this one for this class is really great. And it has stuff that you'll want to reference for the rest of your life. So I recommend printing it. But for now, just you can access the digital version here. And so if you go to that, we'll kind of just make sure that everyone has that because we're going to be working out of it today. And if you just got the book, it's totally fine. We're going to go through the first 2 chapters this week, and then we're going to do 2 chapters basically for the next 4 weeks. So this week is all about setting you up for success, getting into just getting to know some people. So I'll have you go into some breakout rooms today, and we are going to make sure that and all questions are answered. But this class, Allison says, is the hardest of all her classes, is the Understanding Women's course. And that is because we're a little like, men think they're simple. They're not. I've been studying them for only a few years, but they're not simple, but women are a lot more complicated than men. So it's going to be a real journey. And what I love about Allison's work is it's like she shows us the snowflakes on the window. It's the things that are so obvious when she points it out. You're like, oh yeah, that's totally true, but I've just never thought of it that way, or I've never really seen it in that way. And so I hope you have some of those aha moments that kind of change your perspective and see, oh my gosh, this, I can see it everywhere now. And it's now visible to me because I just shifted my perspective. And when we get to shift our perspective around half the human population, that can be a really powerful thing in your life. And it's been really powerful for me. So once you pull that workbook up, you'll see that basically the expectations for the class is that you come. I love that everyone has their videos on and I can see your faces. It helps me as an instructor. It helps me to just feel connected to you. And also I hope that there's a lot of interaction. And that's part of what I really love about this group is it's a time to come with your stories, come with your questions, come with how you're applying this and how it works for you. And that is the biggest contribution that like, it's a co-creation in this class. It's not me just lecturing. You get the lecture on the book. And this is the place for you to take the information and apply it. So if you're not actually changing your life, changing your conversations, then that's my intention, is that you can actually have a different experience of yourself in the 3D. So we're going to talk about it here, but what I want you to do is take the questions in the workbook. You'll see after each couple chapters, there's going to be conversations with a loved one. I really challenge you to take those conversations and have them with the people in your life, have them with someone of the opposite sex. It can be your child, it can be your partner, it can be a friend. It doesn't have to be a significant other. This isn't about just understanding your wife or your daughter. It's about understanding half of the population. So just to get there, you said, could you send the version that is just the script without all the graphics? Oh, no, I can't. So I can send the PDF. And I can, and I'm sorry, I just can't redo the workbook without the graphics. So I just take it down to the printer. I have them printed off. It'll probably be $5 max to have it printed. And I just print it in color for the first page. So if that's something that you want to do to print it, sorry if there's so many graphics, it uses a little more ink, but that's how we're doing it. So I will, yeah, I'll totally send out an email with the PDF version. So definitely I'll send that out this week, and that will be a lot easier to print. So thank you for that. Yeah, someone downloaded it onto the Kindle, which is a great idea. So any other questions about the workbook before we move forward into any of the other things? Awesome. Okay, so each week, same time, same place, clarityzoom.com. So if you're not sure where you're supposed to meet, just write that down on the top of your workbook or wherever your notes are. And then just each week you'll see on the workbook that it tells you which chapters to read in Audible. So that's a little bit of a complication because she says this is chapter 2, but it's chapter 7 in the Audible. So I've written on the main sheet that says week 1, it says which section it is, what the title is, and then which chapters are on Audible it is. So any questions about just navigating the workbook versus what we're doing? It doesn't say on Audible chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So it's a little bit confusing there. And so I really recommend that you look at that on that main page that takes you through week 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, it's so fun to see all of you. I'm so happy we're here. Okay, so the next thing is at the beginning of every class I do, we go through a clarity process. And this is so that you can use your mind as a tool. You can set your intention. You can really get clear on why you're here. You may have just been like, oh my gosh, this is a cool course that Paige is doing. I'm going to sign up. I like learning from Alison Armstrong, and I'm in. And so this is a time to just settle down a little bit and go, okay, in the next 4 or 5 weeks of my life that I'm putting time and energy into this, what's my intention? And how am I going to know I'm successful? So if you go to the workbook on page 7, nope, on page, where am I? On page 2, it's called the Clarity Worksheet. This retreat that I'm putting on is called the Clarity Retreat. My business is Clarity Consulting. Clarity is a big word for me, but it's also really key to the beginning of any success. And so what I want you to do now is to look at this worksheet and just go through the questions and ask yourself, like, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want to understand better about women? And what do I want, right? Really powerful question. And so ask yourself, what do you want? And write some of your answers there. Just the first ones that come to mind. It doesn't have to be a super complex answer or a really deep answer. Just, I want to improve my relationship with this person, or I want to be able to have cool conversations, or whatever it is that you want to have out of this course. So if you want to take a notebook, or if you've already printed it out, just go ahead and write those answers down. And then you'll answer the question, why? Why do I want to accomplish this? How is the to-do list? Like, I'm going to show up each week. I'm going to listen to each chapter at 5 o'clock on Wednesdays. Whatever your how is, that's how you just get, like, put it on. I'm going to put it on my calendar. I'm going to, however, you know, whatever you need to actually do in this realm, then write that down right now. And then put it on your calendar. Make sure that you are setting yourself up to get the very most out of this. That's what I hope for you. And then the next one is, how are you going to know you're successful? So these are the 4 questions to clarity. You can use them anytime in your life. It's great at the beginning of a course, but it's also great at the beginning of a relationship, of a retreat, of a new job, right? What do I want? Why do I want it? How am I going to accomplish it? And how am I going to know I'm successful? And that's a really, really key part, because you're beginning with the end in mind. And so go ahead and write that down as well. The final question is, what could get in your way? So that's always good to just kind of go, yeah, procrastination, dropping off. I've joined classes before and then not finished them. I've lost interest. Whatever it is. And just being aware and saying, what am I going to do to mitigate that, whatever is in the way? So this is a cool clarity process that you can practice here, but you can apply anywhere in your life. So I'm going to give you a minute to finish that up. And then I'm going to have you go into breakout rooms and meet a couple people in the class, and also share your what, why, how.
Same time. Uh, yes. This is the thing about resting as being lazy. Just I felt like I got stabbed when you said those words. It's like, oh my God, it's that perspective, because on the opposite ends of that, it feels like slave driving, like you're not allowed to rest whatsoever. You know. It's like I busted my ass on this and I've earned this moment of peace and quiet. Keep going. So there was that. And then uh yeah, it's there's the understanding is helpful. And I liked what you said about doing it from a place of non-judgment. Um bec- because it's been, what do you call it, weaponized, or there's been this fight of the battle of the sexes and stuff, and there's trying to one up and everything, and I mean, it comes from a place of more of insecurity, and not of a place of team, more of adversary. Uh, I it's just been toxic. And women happen to be some of the people on the planet that I tend to love the most. I'm just saying, that's just me. So it would be good for me to be able to uh, understand. I think Allison says it. If I was watching a show and they were telling me what the male and the female of the species was doing, I would take that as rote and I wouldn't make one wrong or the other. There's a thing about either human spirit or just the way that we do things, that we have these ideals. And if you're not the ideals, and I said this to you yesterday, is that, I'll word it this way. It's almost like we're humans, this beautiful ideal with this disease of having a body and issues and all this other stuff, is the way a lot of people talk about it, rather than realizing that we're an animal that have all these instincts. But look at how we've risen and have been able to create these things, being able to find this peace, to find this next level of relating and beauty and art and communication. It's just this fantastic thing which only popped up, what are you saying, 40,000 years ago. Like, why don't we freaking see it that way? That's like, yes, we're just a bunch of, apes running around, and all of a sudden we can drink tea. We're apes drinking tea. Go us.
Oh, first of all, thank you for being in the class, and thank you, men, for being here, because it's so helpful to have a man's perspective. And I heard words like toxic or competitive or, like slave driver. Like there's these ways that we show up sometimes that women have similar complaints about men, right? And we can go into this place, like you said, of like making it so it's, I guess the thing is we're looking at this as instinct is real. You're going to feel tension in your body. You are going to have the instinct to sit and do nothing, and you're going to have the instinct to go around and putter. And when we do these things, not to go, men, because you're doing it differently than me, or even another woman not doing it just like me, then she's wrong, or she's not doing it right, or even feeling like we have, just in that comparison, the competitiveness comes in, the blame, even that toxic, like that. If you look at toxic masculine and toxic feminine, we could have a whole class about that, right? But we're focusing on what we really want, how we want to show up. And it's coming out of instinct, and it's being in choice. It's going, whoa, I'm having a cave woman attack. Like I am feeling so much tension in my body. I am going around and puttering and I'm doing all these things, and you're just sitting there, and I'm just this is hard for me, right? And also going, and if I step back and go, wow, you just finished building a house, and you just brought, like, you've been working for the last 15 years to build our retirement and to pay and to do these things. And I've been working too, and I've been building our retirement too, whatever it is, but going like, wow, we're both doing the best we can with what we have. And it's freeing. It's freeing. So Judy, go ahead. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Judy.
Hi. The thing that stood out for me, even in this conversation, is thinking about it as adversarial or cooperative. And that's been a huge distinction for me, to even notice if I'm being in adversarial, right? That awareness of, oh my gosh, I'm really acting as if I'm in an adversarial relationship or communion, and how to get out of it. So it's like, I grew up with a father and 3 brothers. So I grew up knowing that men were a lot different than women. And now I think all this unisex and all this other kind of stuff, it's like, no, men are men and women are women. And just having that presence, just pulling that apart and having a fresh view of men from an educated point of view rather than an opinion point of view, and women just what the diffuse brain or the focus brain, it gives me clarity about myself and about another. So it, even with my daughter, right, or my son-in-law, and just seeing that, or my grandchildren, just being present to the distinctions gives so much freedom and clarity. And then there's a neutral space to create whatever you're creating in that moment.
Yeah.
And it drops off the protection. I loved what you said, Paige, when you said, when we make things wrong, we go into suffering. And I really like that statement, because when I go into contraction, then, I've gone into that instinct about something's a threat, right, that she was talking about. But if I take a moment and breathe, then I don't have to go into adversarial. I can decide what I want to do, and I can come back to choice and freedom and not go into suffering, maybe just for a minute or two, but I don't have to stay there and act from that place.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I love that you brought this up of like when we contract, when we're going into that, making everything wrong or feeling bad or feeling the instinct. One thing that's really powerful for me is to just ask, what do I want? That question we started the class with, right? What do I want? And the beautiful thing in understanding women is when we get clear on what we want, then we can make requests. Then these amazing, beautiful providers can provide something. Like men actually want to know what we want. They want to know like how they can provide. And so it's actually an invitation. So when we feel this tension in our bodies and we can ask, what's the gift? What's the invitation? What is it that my soul is asking for? And we can even ask the men in our life for it. It can be this invitation for partnership. And this is what this work is all about. It's so beautiful. It's so magnificent. And just to note what Judith was talking about too, is like men are this way and women are this way. Well, I have friends that are in same-sex relationships, but there's a fundamental masculine and a fundamental feminine in the ones that I know of. And I don't know about all of it, but in order to have polarity, in order for that relationship to have that, there's going to be a masculine and a feminine. And so again, women can be single focused. We can have more testosterone than other women, right? We can act mostly in our masculine, and we can act mostly in our feminine. But if you want polarity with the opposite sex, or if you want polarity in your relationship, there has to be that. So in relationship where there isn't that polarity, if you're not getting pulled towards your partner, this is something to look at. Am I being in my masculine or am I being in my feminine? And what's my partner being? And it all there has to be is polarity. So some relationships, the man has a certain level of femininity and she has a certain amount of masculinity, and that pulls them together as well. So just to note that it's Jules, I would love for you to share, because you're like kind of the expert on, one of the residing experts on this topic. But is there anything that you've kind of like, how has it been applying the hunter-gatherer concept in your life, or how does this help you?
Well, I think since I learned some of these principles and when we've done this course over time, I've seen and experienced the power of the awareness of it, the power of looking at myself and saying, where am I at? Am I in my masculine, my feminine? And asking that question, what do I want? Do I want to win or be right? Or do I want to be happy? Like where is Bill at? Like I've become so much more self-aware and practice like this journey of connection Like I have this big sign I'm looking at right now that I put on my file cabinet that says, you know, choose to conquer the human instinct and act from the human spirit. That equals connection. And so, you know, just putting words and creating new words and new thoughts, you know, change your thoughts, change your life. And just the power of awareness and where are my thoughts? Am I being triggered? Am I being, you know, in patterns of old ways of saying things and looking at Bill, or like, am I choosing now to like see where am I at? Am I in scatterbrainness, or am I focus mode? Or, but I think the most powerful thing in all of this for me is I have been practicing asking for what I want, asking for things that allows Bill to provide for me, instead of inside myself feeling like, well, I want this thing, but I don't dare ask for it. So I'm going to drop a hint, and then he's not going to pick up on the hint. And then I'm going to be triggered. I'm going to be pissed off because he didn't get the hint. And instead, it's like, you know, speak up I can be kind. You know, like one of my affirmations that I've been practicing over and over and over and over for months is, I am a kind and compassionate and understanding person. And, you know, I am super Jules, and I am calm and I have peace inside myself. It doesn't always work every day, but practicing those new words and creating a new identity for myself, which is my true identity. But my old identity, I would tell myself, you know, no, I get triggered and I'm frustrated. And so I just, you know, started practicing these words, and then just doing little new habits, like go up and give Bill a hug in the kitchen when he's not expecting it, or just be soft. Like I am kind, I am soft, and I do care, and I can be calm, and I don't have to be in fight or flight danger mode all the time, or defensive. Like just the practice of new patterns, of new choices of behaving and thinking and doing and then being. And you know, it's such a practice.
Such
Just
a
to
beautiful practice.
Yeah, just to practice asking for what you want, being aware of what you want, and just saying, you know, what am I willing to do, or who am I willing to be to get what I want, and just letting go of that ego. It's just that letting go, asking for what you want, and being willing to be humble enough to, and open-hearted to receive.
Yeah. Oh, I love it so much. So that's that's the challenge for this week as you go into this week. Women, just feeling into the feminine. Like, what does it feel like to putter? What does it feel like to be in scan vision? What does it feel like to be in masculine? One of our participants last class, she said she's going to wear a hat to just remind her, oh, I'm in masculine right now, and I'm going to get stuff done. And then she goes into her feminine and she puts her feminine hat on. And she just did that for a couple days just to be really intentional. So we're retraining ourselves. We're learning how to apply this. It is all about stepping into human spirit, out of the instinctual reactions, and really for the feminine to step out of this fight or flight. Like there's so much of this kind of fear, or seeing where fear is. And that's where this retreat, we're spending 2 days just going through what is fear and what is love, and what's the fearful choice and what's the loving choice. And in this situation and that situation, we're just training our brains to see it, because it's one concept to go, I'm going to choose love over fear. That's a great idea. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to come out of, but it's another to actually embody it, to see it in every, well, is it loving to go in and tell my ex-husband that he has to do the dishes if he ever stays at my house? Or is it like, or is it loving? That's self-loving. That's loving of me to go in and tell him that he's doing it wrong. Or is it loving for me to, you know, stay in my own business, right? Or to whatever it is. But it's more complicated than just saying I'm going to do it. So there's a lot of just trial and error. Like, you're not going to do this perfectly. You're not going to see women in a totally different light after this one class, or after these 2 chapters. But over time, with consistency, as you continue, like every day, kind of just go into, okay, like What does it feel like to be in my feminine? What does it feel like to be in my masculine? What's the hunter? What's the gatherer? And just watch for it this week. And I think it's going to be really beautiful to just experience this, this in yourself and in the people around you. So Robert, you've got 1 minute. I want to hear what you were going to say.
I was just gonna say, from the guy's point of view, we want to give the women what they want, and asking us is such a gift. Unless, unless it goes into like the veto land, that's a different story. But in general, we do. What can be torturous on our side is the expecting us to be, or what it feels like, expecting us to be psychic and figure it out. And I'd be like, just tell me and I'll give you, please, God, this is like, make it easy. This is not, it's like, you just ask, you'll get. So yeah, it's, I just kind of wanted to reinforce that with Julia.
I saw your face light up when she was like, just I tell him. And you're like, yeah, like, this is what I'm learning. Like, when men just want us to tell you, and we'll get to veto land, but that is a really good point. And Judy, you have a minute too. Go ahead.
I was just applauding Robert with what he said. And then it brings to mind the asking for what you need, but then asking them if they need anything from me to fulfill it. And that's the beauty of it, is like, I can ask for what I need and what it provides, but it can come off as a demand. But if I ask them, what do you need from me to be able to do that? Right.
Yeah.
And I believe in their willingness and capacity, but then it becomes partnership again. And it's not just telling
demands or saying, I want this, give it to me. But
right.
It's a conversation of creating partnership and figuring out and making the assumption, like I've learned in the last couple of relationships I've been in, that they really love to give to me. And if they can't, then they won't. But like their desire to give me everything that I would ever want is there. Like I just have experienced that in the masculine since learning this stuff and seeing it in my friends' partners and stuff, just like, oh my God, she's so, like, how cute. Like he just totally wants to give you everything. And that doesn't mean that he does give you everything, because they have limits and we're all human and everything else. But seeing them from that space in their heart, like such beautiful, beautiful, loving hearts that are in these men that we're drawing in. One final thing is this, and I bring this up in all of Allison's work, because this information is about working with healthy men and healthy women. And if there's mental illness or there's certain like personality disorders, this is not even applicable. Like it's not, you may come across like, yeah, but this person doesn't do that, but it's just not a healthy person if this doesn't apply. So, and there's exceptions to everything. So come with your questions, come with the applications that you have and what comes up that works and what doesn't work. And we're here to just have these conversations and explore these concepts together. And so this is the class for today, but make sure that you go through chapters 1 through 25. And just to let you know, the chapters are like 2 or 3 minutes. So you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, what is she asking me to do? It's about like, and actually I could total the amount of time, but it's not a lot of time. So it's maybe an hour of listening. And if you do it on 2x, it's twice as fast as that. So whatever you decide, but it's the listening, but it's also going through the book and using it and applying it. So I'll stay on for the next 10 minutes and otherwise have an amazing week of exploring and discovering the magical truths about women and men in your life. So thanks for being here. Love you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dan, thanks for being here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I wanted to I kept being like, I
Yeah,
think
thanks,
Dan
Paige.
had something to say. But I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, I was smirking during something because it kind of hit me. Like my situation is, I'm a single dad of 3 kids that are teenagers. I was divorced about 9 years ago. So I kind of quickly like went into like having to like do all this stuff. Like I felt like I had to like do all and learn the other
Mom and
side.
dad. Yeah.
And yeah. So, and then I said something. And I'm thinking like, well, yeah, whatever the feminine stuff to kind of get this to go. And, because of the way she responded, which was like more masculine, it kind of put me into this other side, into this other territory to try to get stuff done. And I was like, oh yeah, well, isn't it kind of common to bounce back and forth between these different modes? And I think the answer is, yeah, it's normal, right? Like we have masculine, we have feminine, and even though we're masculine, we still have to embody the feminine in certain things.
Well, and even like being a single dad.
So it's like this awareness of it is great. And the fact that like in the bandwidth.
Yeah, sorry, you cut out a little bit, so I jumped in, but
Oh,
I think being a single dad and being a parent, I don't know, like being a mom, I always say like being a mom makes you ADHD. Like, but it's this,
yeah.
you have to be able to multitask and go from one task to another. And I can't imagine a man having to do that full time, like be in that role as much because the brain isn't as naturally there, but you adapt and you figure out how to do it, right?
Yeah. You got to expand,
Yeah.
get a bigger plate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how adaptable humans are, but really impressive when men can adapt like that because it's like it's just impressive. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think
Sure, thanks.
I think you'll get a lot out of this. So it'll be really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jody.
I just wanted to say that your statement about men, not being lazy, that they're like gathering energy for, that's gonna change my whole life right there. One thing.
What?
Poor men in my life.
What?
I owe them an apology.
Right? No, yeah. Like literally, we would travel around the world, and my mom was, feministic enough. She was born in the 70s or 60s, but she was like, like it was always a comment about how lazy the men were. We went to 20 countries, and it was just like, see, they're sitting on the balcony, and the women are all in there taking care of the kids and making all the food, and they've been working all day long, and they take their baskets to the market and whatever. And so it was just this kind of programming of seeing men that way, and in some places, like they're not pulling their full weight. It's true. But in general, like as I look around, I just see the insanity of what men create in the world. Like real men are building the houses and the infrastructure and the economy and like beautiful ways of providing for their families and for the people they love.
Mhm.
So
And yet we kind of seem to be maybe like losing some of that in current generations though too, doesn't it? Like I heard something yesterday, I don't know the stats or facts, but it was something about how like young women today, young 20s, 30, like they don't want to get married, or they're just like, I don't need another kid. I don't need a son. I don't need, it's like, hey, I'll just do this myself. It's like more, I don't know if that's societally influenced as well, probably maybe, but it's this idea of like, I'll go it alone. It's, what, it's being a mom is tough, being a single mom, but screw it. Like it's a better option than the other option. That seems to be something I'm seeing a lot.
Especially when you're programmed to see the person you've partnered with as less than, or and it's totally societal programming, and it's this emphasis on all the hunter attributes. And so as a girl grows up and sees hunters are what are valuable in society, she naturally goes into hunter mode. So she starts to develop all of her masculine qualities because that's what's valuable in our society. And it ends up being a total loss to all of society. And it's a real loss to the feminine, because it's actually really taxing on the human body to be in total production all the time when you don't have the testosterone for it. So it gets really exhausting. So adrenal fatigue, like health problems, all of these fertility issues, like there's massive, massive impact on women. And then on men, they lose their queens. They're like, they don't have the women to provide for. And so these boys are growing up and they're like, I don't know, I may not have someone to provide and protect, like how we developed as humans, that for the last even 100 years ago, boys knew, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to take care of a family. And now that's not there. So there's not that like total, that stepping into who they are. And what I love seeing is like how when men provide and protect and procreate, they feel better. They are more of a man. They're more empowered. They're more happy. They're more fulfilled. Like, that's cool that we actually work together. Like, a woman can be provided for and a man can provide, and we can both be winning. Because for women, we don't get that. So when I think I'm going to ask a man for something, he's going to give me something and he's going to have less. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ask him for something. I'm not going to expect him to give me anything, because I wouldn't do that. I have to make sure that I'm providing just as much. And so there's this huge like guilt that we have if we're being provided for, until we learn this information. Then we're like, oh, like it's a gift for me to be at
It's
dinner.
okay.
Yeah, like I wouldn't let a guy pay for me at my dinner when I first started dating after divorce, because I was like, no, he'll expect something from me and he'll need something, and I don't want to give him anything. And then I realized, oh, my presence, being at dinner with him and being delightful and being grateful, is like all he wants. And he's delighted to give it to me, and he wants to pay for it. Like, that's so cool that I couldn't even like wrap my mind around for years. Like, it was just like, I can't even think that that could be real. And now I've stepped into so much more receiving because of this concept. So cool.
That
I
was
love, and I think I was just going to say, it's all about getting the new perspective, like shifting into realizing there is another perspective. You know, there's a perspective that will empower us and empower them if we can just come around from a different angle. And one of the things I loved about, you know, the course that we did with Allison Rogers, and when we're doing the feminine intuition course, was just learning that when, you know, kind of, this came from like the Mary Magdalene manuscripts and all that, where the concept of being trained and learning that you have so much power to empower your man. Like, if we can recognize, we can get whatever we want if we help them by empowering them instead of stripping them from their power and being competitive and like, and putting them down or being defensive. It's like, just get a grip and just say, okay, if I come from my heart, let go of this instinct to be defensive or to, you know, be competitive. If I come from my heart and just say, what do they care about? And like, what do they need? And how can I empower this person by, what do they need to feel empowered? Do they need to feel affection and loved and like build them up? What do men need? They, you know, they need respect, admiration, appreciation. You just get those three things right there and just go, oh, well, what would it take? What would it take for me to show appreciation or to show admiration? What can I admire them for? I'm sure there's something I can think of, and just do that, put some energy into that, which empowers them, lifts them up, helps them to feel good about themselves. And then you feel good about yourself because you've just shown love. And then they're just going to like be purring like a cat, you know?
Yeah. It's finding these win-wins, isn't it? And it's also, we're talking about this next week a lot, but it's this instinct that women have to disempower men and make them weaker, because we know that they're more powerful and stronger than us. And so instinct says, make someone that could overpower you weak. And it is a complete lose-lose.
And also, Paige, like you were just saying, that we're programmed, we're trained to be in the competition, be in the race, be in the competition against men. So it's
Mhm.
It's all programming.
to fight for what we want. You know, it's like it's how it feels as a woman these days. You have to fight for what you want to get your needs met, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
Yeah.
this is where I can speak from different generation, right? Because I have lots of decades, but we weren't conditioned that way.
Yeah.
Didn't go through that kind of conditioning. We went through the conditioning of mutuality and respect,
Yeah.
and you were respectful and you were honorable and you kept your word, and we didn't. So when all that was going on in the 60s and the 70s, it was like trash to me. It was like, this is not ERA, this is not equal rights for women, this is women bashing women. Nobody, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but if you weren't in the working force and being in your masculine, then you weren't as valuable if you were taking care of your children and taking care of your home. And I've always been outspoken. You can't not imagine me not being outspoken, can you? But it's like, I'm going like, this is sisterhood. Now stop it. You know, I'm taking care of your kids essentially while you're at work. And then you come home and you are so stressed out and you're trying to come home and do all of this. And, you know, it's been a very interesting 40 years that I think people are now just really bummed that they drank the Kool-Aid, so to say. They didn't even notice the results when they were drinking it. And, you know, but when you have reflection, right? Every one of you are old enough to have reflection, and you reflect back, Jody, like you were saying, it's like, oh my gosh, if I had been aware of this sooner, right? Then, but I think it's like she was saying in the book, and it was really fun reading it or listening to it from the Audible point of reference. You know, so much laughter, so much lightness, so much connection, right? And then if you just notice that you're in an adversarial relatedness, I've loved that term, right? Then you can do something different and pull out of it. And then, like Julia said, then you can have that open heart again, because you realize you're being adversarial. You're being adversarial, not just them being adversarial. You are. And then you can choose a different route. So I think brilliant.
That's so good. Hi, Becca. Good to see you. We were just wrapping up the conversation, but it's just so good. And it's going to be really fun to dive in. And I was thinking, you know, I'm pretty proud of the human race that it only was 40 years. You know, at least some of us are coming out going, oh, like, whoops, and let's change the narrative and let's show up differently, because we do want to, we want everyone to be empowered, and we want to find win-wins, and we want to show up in love. So that's the game, and we're all working at it. So it's so good. Becca, did you have anything you wanted to share before we hop off? Just wanted to give you a chance to share.
Not really, except that when I listened to the book on Audible, I thought a lot of this is my husband, not me. It's like we're switched. And I thought, maybe I don't need this class. Maybe this isn't for me. Anyway, and then I've loved the class. I think it's been wonderful, and I've learned a lot. And I also realized I grew up with all sisters. And so of course I'm going to have more masculinity. I mean, because it wasn't there. I mean, my dad was there, but it made sense to me that I do have more of that because there was so much of it not there.
Yeah.
But I've been able to relate with some of the things that have been pointed out that I didn't pick up in the listening to the book.
Yeah.
And that I was very relatable to the when he sits and reads a book or sits and watches something, and I'm busy, and I'm the productive one, and and I don't want to feel that way, but it's there. And I think, oh my word, that's really a thing.
Yeah.
And also the where he'll just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and I'm like, stop. So it's been, I'm really glad that I decided to try it out because it's a lot more than what I thought it was.
Oh, I'm so glad. How did you hear about it, Becca?
Your sister, Brooke.
Oh, good. Good, good, good. That's so awesome.
Yeah, we knew each other in Moscow, and then we moved. We're in Post Falls now, Idaho, and she told me about it.
That's so great. I'm going to see her in like an hour. I'm so excited. But one like pro tip about what were you just saying about how that talking. This is like just one last thing because I was just having a conversation with my coach about it. But there's this thing about men and their opinions, and it's like this life project of like deciding what their opinions are, and like the people they trust, they'll share their opinions. But the problem with men sharing their opinions is it puts women into this place of oh my gosh, I agree with you. And when we agree with another woman, we tell them that we agree with them, because then all of a sudden we're all cozy and we love each other and we're like in one together. And so we tell them, oh, I agree. And he's like, yeah, of course you agree. It's true. And you totally just interrupted me. Like, what the heck, you know? And then, so then we feel this disconnect of like, and he's kind of disconnected because he just was interrupted. And then the other option is I disagree with you. So you're listening to him and he's sharing his opinion and this is his life work. And he's so excited to tell you. And the whole time you're going, oh my gosh, I don't agree with him. And I feel so awful right now because if I disagree with someone, then I'm not connected with him. And then we're not really a good partnership. And then it's just a terrible situation. And so I don't want to tell him because now I'm withholding something. But if I tell him that I disagree with him, then I'll feel really disconnected. And so the whole time she's totally uncomfortable, right? So it's just a fascinating thing how like men will go on and on and on and on about their opinions. And it's just this complete like disaster between men and women. So anyway, I just had to share that because it's just like hilarious to me and I see it. I just watch myself like, oh, okay, cave woman attack, not agreeing with this master opinion that he feels like he needs to tell me about for the next 20 minutes. Like, I'm just going to listen and try to walk myself through this like deep breaths, you know? So anyway, it's all so fun. You're going to love it. I'm so glad you're here, Becca. I'm so glad you're all here. Dan, thank you for being here. Having men in here is like the best. I love hearing your opinions. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Please share for sure.
I want to thank Judith because she talked about Alison Armstrong. Remember like about a couple months ago, you were telling me some things, and then Paige, you offered this and I was like, oh yeah, this is the thing Judith was talking about. I wanted to dig into it. So, and then earlier, so this material from Alison Armstrong is kind of new to me, I thought, but then Julia, when you were talking, you were saying some things and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a book that I read about 4 years ago. There was a woman I was dating shown to read. And I just looked it up and it's The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong. I was like, oh, that's what it was. So I do have some familiarity with the material. And I remember reading that book being like, yeah, this is the shit, man. This is good. I wish everybody was doing this.
I know, like every man that reads her stuff is like, yeah, that's totally true. Like, you know, it's so cool. Yay. I'm so glad you're back on.
Yeah.
And Judy's been diving deep into this stuff for the last like year with me. So it's been super fun to be on this journey together. Okay. Love you all. I've got to run, but
Awesome.
It's so good to see
Love
you.
you guys.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
bye.